go. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast. I'm back here with a familiar face, Miss Courtney. We haven't done a podcast in a while together.
We haven't, but we have done a couple.
We've done a couple together. I feel like they're good. They're like good content. I feel like when I've been recently bringing students in, which I love. I love connecting with them, but I forget, like, if you haven't done a podcast, you're almost like, you're like, where do I look? What do I say? What do I do? And you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And there's something about being a listener of the podcast and getting to be on the podcast. Yeah. You're kind of like, whoa,
cool. Mm-hmm. This is the room.
Yes. It doesn't lose its luster.
That's good to hear. Well, let's just jump right into it. Like,
let's dive.
Courtney is leaving us, so we're pretty upset about that, but we're also excited. Do you like how I said we're upset about that when I'm like, don't you hate it when you're really excited about something and you go tell somebody and they're like, why are you doing that? I feel like I just did that.
No, I felt support from you the whole time.
She came a month ago and she's like, I didn't know it was going to be that serious of a conversation, but you were like, hey, do you have time to chat? And I'm like, yeah, come on over. She comes over to my home and she's like, I feel like I need to go fly. I need to go spread my wings. I need to go. I'm feeling called somewhere else. And I was like, I tried to bribe her. I literally was like,
wait, what?
I was like, oh no, I have more work for you. I have lots of things you could do. Mm-hmm. And she was like, and I felt like I solidly had to. I was like in the opposite boat where I wasn't like, why would you do that? I was like trying to convince you to stay till I realized I was like, she's been thinking about this for a while.
You're like, oh, this is her soul.
I was like, she's already made up her mind and she came and I'm trying to like talk her into staying, but she's already gone through this. Like you'd already like thought through it and like got confirmation. Mm-hmm. And it's hard once you get confirmation actually it's not. Once you get confirmation in your heart, like you think about something for a while and then there's like a moment where you're like, it feels right.
There's like a peace that will come over you and you're like, there it is.
And it's almost like you ignore these feelings. Like, I don't know if you do this, but like sometimes I'll ignore these feelings. And then when I actually like entertain certain feelings about making decisions and I get this confirmation that you're right, you're like, I've been pushing these feelings away and this is where I need to go or this is what I need to do. So tell us about what's your new adventure? What are you doing?
Well, the new adventure is just like I kind of said, well, first when I went to your house, I was like, I had so many emotions, right? To be like, I'm going to share this. Right. Also like, I'm nervous, I'm excited, like all of the things like all in one. And really it just came down to like two things where I was like, one, I miss the mountains. Yeah. Like I am a mountain
girl.
Oh, I grew up in the mountains. Huh. I grew up on 11 acres. I had chickens and horses and I did like 4-H and FFA.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small mountain town in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, by Crater Lake.
I mean, I grew up in Utah.
Well, Utah also has mountains, which I love.
Yeah.
The Utah mountains are gorgeous. Mm-hmm. I was living outside of Lake Tahoe and like commuting into Reno. Mm. Lots of big mountains, lots of snowboarding, hiking. Mm-hmm. And so I just had come from this mountain, like it kind of felt quaint, where this is more like ocean and fast and like, everybody's like racing to the next red light. And I'm just like,
too many Ferraris.
Right? I'm just like waving, hey, let you in. Come on. How's it going? And I'm like, whoa.
Cut you off and flip you off at the same time.
It really is true. So there's like a piece of just like that I know is like so rooted in who I am. Mm. And so I started to feel that just like Southern California, like trying to get the bearings when you relocate. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like I never got my sea legs, I guess. And then I also was just like, I think I have an entrepreneurial spirit. Like, I just feel this passion, which actually drew me to our education to start with. Like, there's something that our education represents and that we have where it's like, design the life you want, do whatever, make it, create it, envision it.
You always feel like you're like not selling out, but it's like you wanted to be a part of the company and the vision, but also it was almost like you were selling out on your own personal journey.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I mesh these two things together and really understanding like, it's okay that I feel this way. And the love that I have for the education is what still like my original why, like all of that still burns true for me. And if you guys were at convention, you just know that convention was off the hook and it was so good. And I felt those like early 2018, 2019,
like smell change in the air,
like feeling. And I was just like in a room with all of my peers and listening to people talk and speak and getting to speak and to hear, Garrett kind of breathe a little bit more of that, like, back in, I was just like, yeah, our goals and dreams.
I'm back.
And I just was like, okay, I need to feed that.
I felt like the years that I had my babies, not that I sedated, but we lost a little bit of the soul.
It was a time warp. You were so busy.
So I was having 2 children in 2 years, and then the world closed down, and I felt like during that time, like things were good, but I also felt like I was like in water, just treading, like when do I get to swim out of this, and I didn't realize until like after. It was like last year when I let one of our trainers go, and I kind of like was like trying to like get back in, you know what I mean? And I felt like there's just like a lot of energy in the air and puzzle pieces moving, if that makes sense.
I agree with that one.
You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, but in a good way, like in a good way.
Yes, like everything's falling into place.
Yeah, it was like, I'm sorry I put my company on hold for 2 years to have 2 humans, but not that I put it on hold, but it was a weird time with everything closing down, and we were building the academy and doing all the things. You know,
and
what
I
mean?
think there was like a 2020 like kind of like a hangover that happened for everybody. Like
literally,
it feels like I lost all of like 2020 and 2021. Kind of like they're this weird melted year.
Literally, you're like, where did the last 5 years go? Like it's
for sure.
It's so weird.
For sure, but it's been so great to see. Like you were at a different place then. Garrett was at a different place then. Like all of us inside of the tribe and the community were at different places then. And now to kind of be at this new place, like I definitely am seeing different sides of Garrett when he's like training and teaching, and he's bringing kind of like the best of both worlds.
He finally, you know what was interesting? So I had my husband involved back in 2017. I brought him in for a couple years. And then I kind of like, he was always like, I'm so busy with Warrior. And I was like, I'm so tired of feeling bad that you're helping inside of my company. Like, bye. But it was great because I restructured things and we kind of got back on track. But then I was like,
and new things were built and created and birthed, literally.
Yeah. But the funny thing is bringing Garrett back in, I was like, I'm not going to have you come back in to make me feel bad for wanting to like push this to the next level. This is, it's my baby, but this can be our business. Like, don't come back in and think like he always had this like stick up his ass. Like if he comes back in, he's working for me, which I kind of liked. I was like, yeah, you are. But also I was like, I had to have a conversation with him. I was like, this is a we thing. This is our baby. This like you add a lot of value to what we're doing. And you know what's so crazy? We did our council event yesterday, and I have not been in a classroom where the day because we teach a lot. Like we have a lot of events, a lot of fulfillment. Like I have not been in the energy in the room with council was so incredible. Like the day just like flew by. Like it was so incredible. And I'm like, I almost have like lost that feeling lately. Like it was almost like I was teaching and I was like, is the day over? Can I get out of here? Whereas teaching my council class, it was just a higher level of thinking for artists and different energy. And it was just like, I was like, I'm like, you know, those days when you teach and you're like, that was awesome. Like that was like kind of one of those feelings. I was like, okay. That. And it made me feel like, okay, this is going to help a lot of artists. We need to keep doing this, kind of thing. So it's like the passion reignited a little bit. I'm
seeing this thing where you and Garrett doing it together too, like getting to see you guys together on stage at convention. Like you both hold such like unique and specific talent and skill and power on stage. And to see that duality start to like come together. Yeah. And I think that's part of council too. And you guys mentoring and coaching and teaching inside that level. And to see you guys, travel out and do other public speaking events together. It's like this moment, this puzzle piece is kind of you two together. Yeah, for sure. Pushing out, your guys' energy for that.
And before it was always like, it was very much his company and my company. Now I'm like, there are companies. And even like speaking on stage has been really fun and really cool because I'm used to speaking on stage with multiple people. Like as an artist, we train together and like for me, it feels really natural. But I guess in the speaking world, it's like if you're a speaker, you don't normally have like a co-speaker with you. Right. So Garrett's so funny. he's like, I'm not useless. I'm like, babe, it's like we'll get in a flow. Cause he kept being like, we went to Miami and he's like, you need to like get up and speak more. I'm like, I'm not going to just like cut you off. Like, you know what I mean?
There's a dance.
Yeah. I'm like, that's what I was telling him.
It's a special dance.
There's a rhythm. I'm like, we got to find our rhythm a little more. But anyways, it was fun. Okay. So I do want to talk about a few topics today. You had a bunch of really good topics and now I've like forgotten most of them.
Oh, I've got them.
Okay.
I've got them on lock.
I've got them. Forgotten most of them.
One of the things that we had talked about is just when like you do share like, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is where I'm at, and being certain in your decision. And then also the certainty you need to have kind of trickles into different areas, because you never really know how people are going to respond and give you, like, they'll just give you feedback on what they think you're doing, which is great. Like, I'm open to that. Like, you want certain people in your life to be like, do you think this is a good idea too? Like, you do test it out. But just to notice, like, how do people receive the growth that you want to have in your life? Are they people who are like, oh my gosh, I see this for you. Like, I'm excited. What's it going to be?
Are they negative Nancy or are they cheerleaders?
Or are they just like, oh, that's scary. I could never. You should never. What are you going to do? What about this? What about that? And really pay attention when you tell things to people that you're excited about. What do they do? What do they say?
What's their response? And it's always, their response is always a direct reflection on them. They're like, oh, I would never do that. And it's like, well, that's why you're where you're at and you're going to stay here. And that maybe works for you. But this is where I feel like I need to go. You know what I mean?
And I think I understand people's fear, especially about being a hairstylist, because we have to build a clientele wherever we go. And so it's like, oh my gosh, like almost.
You have to start over?
Yeah.
You work so hard.
You know what's so crazy? So if you've listened to a podcast with us before, you know a little bit about my story, but I actually went to 4 years. I got my bachelor's in speech communications, and then I jumped into the corporate world. And then I remember like being at my desk and just being like, I want to tap into the creative side of me. And I was like, those hairdressers, like, they're their own entrepreneur. They get to make their own schedule and they can move anywhere.
Like sounds perfect.
It was one of those things where I was like, it's such an attribute to what we have in our industry is you can literally go anywhere with your trade and build.
Right.
And I think so often we almost look at it in a negative lens of like, well, I'm here, I've got clients,
I'm stuck.
The ball and chain. Yeah. And when in reality, like, it's all in your own mindset. It's all in your own perspective of like, I could do this anywhere.
So I'll share a quick story. So when I actually started my brand, I had lived in Salt Lake City and I had actually built up the dream clientele. I wasn't charging a lot then, so I can't say like I was making a ton, but I was only doing extensions, which is what I love doing. I was just doing color and extensions. And then we decided to move to Arizona. And I'm like, for a fresh start, long story short, if you've followed me or listened to any of my stuff, we basically went bankrupt, didn't know if we were going to stay married, like shit went sideways. So we decided to start fresh and move to Arizona. Well, we wanted to move to California. And I looked at houses and I was like, babe. And at the time we had 2 kids and I was like, babe, we can get a 1-bedroom apartment. It's like literally, he's like, oh, I was like, so then I Googled, I love sunshine. So I Googled what's like the sunniest place in the United States, and it's Arizona.
Okay.
So I go look in Arizona. I started looking at homes online and I'm like, holy shit, babe, we can get like a 4,000 square foot home for the same price as a 1-bedroom apartment in California. True story, still to this day. So we ended up moving to a town called Gilbert, Arizona. Now Gilbert, this was like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Now Gilbert's kind of like a trendy, cute, like small town, but like it's not so remote. When we moved there, you literally would lose cell phone service on the way out to our house, and you had to pass 3 cow farms where my kids were like, it stinks so bad. The closest movie theater and Walmart was 20 minutes away, and Target was like 30. So there was nothing. There was nothing. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, how am I going to like make more money doing hair here? Like my goal was like to have a fresh start and to make more money, and I worked so hard to build up my extension clientele. So I get a job in Scottsdale, which was like 45 minutes from Gilbert. And then the day before I'm supposed to start, I'm like, I don't feel good about this. My spidey senses
said no.
Said no. So there's this random salon spa studio next to my house. The only thing by the salon spa studio was like a Taco Bell, a McDonald's, and like a couple random boutiques and like a yogurt shop. That's it. That's it. But you could walk there from my house. So super close.
Perfect.
So I'm like, all right. So I'm like, if I can get, I ended up sharing a room with a girl, like a suite. And I was like, if I can get one client this month, that pays for my rent. If I get 2 clients this month, I just made money. So that I'm always like a very logical thinker, right? So crazy enough, I figure out I start putting myself online. I'm flying back to Utah and doing hair there so I can get content to market in Arizona. And I'm on YouTube and I'm just marketing my little ass off. And this was like when Instagram wasn't even alive.
Right. It was the YouTube days.
It was the YouTube days. And I ended up building we only lived in Arizona for 2 years. Within a year, I had built up an extension clientele with I would say 90% of my clients were flying or driving like hours in this tiny town to come see me. And so I remember I was like, I never felt, it was kind of like, it reminds me how you are right now, where like I moved to Arizona and it was a pit stop for me. Like I was like, I never felt like this. It never felt like home to me. I couldn't get my bearings. I just didn't feel like I belonged there. And so I built up my clientele so fast and I have all these clients flying in and I'm like, I'm moving, peace. And everyone's like, you're nuts. And I was like, no, because I understand the power of marketing even in this tiny town. And I did what everybody told me was not possible and was charging big city prices in a small town. Moved to California, did the same thing, but it only took me 3 months. So that's
you had that portfolio and that credibility to follow you.
And it's like once you do it, and especially I definitely was meant to go to Gilbert for a pit stop, because it taught me that, like, we have so many artists still to this day that they come in and they're like, I live in a small town. I'm like, let me tell you where I started. And Instagram wasn't even alive then, you know?
I do. And I think that's the thing that's crazy is that is my certainty. Like, I feel like I can go anywhere as a cosmetologist. You can transfer your cosmetology license to another state. You can go anywhere. And then recognizing the fact that you're not building a clientele from just like however many people are in that town.
Right.
You're building a clientele for as far and wide as your marketing message can go. And now with the power of social media, your message can go anywhere. Well, and people will travel if you do good work.
And it's good work, but it's also putting your personality out there. So we yesterday in council, we were like explaining like, hey, there's so much pretty hair on the marketplace right now. You got to stand out, which means that like you could be sharing a story about you and then clients immediately connect and relate to you. And then they're willing to drive or travel because you shared a story about your dog or your kid or an experience while doing pretty hair. They're like, okay, that's Courtney's my girl. I don't care. I'm driving, an hour to go see her. I don't care. Like, I like her messaging. I like what it is. So that's why you even have to kind of get out of the scarcity mindset of like, well, so-and-so in the salon over me, she does the same extensions. She's not you.
Well, and it's funny you say this. I just did a live about this same topic. And it's like, yes, my personality is going to attract the right people, and like your marketing message is going to attract the right people, but it's also going to repel the wrong people.
Yeah.
And that's good.
That's fine. Yeah.
I don't want you to, at this point, I don't want you to sit in my chair unless we're a great fit. We're going to spend 4 hours together. I'm going to give you a transformation. I'm invested in you. Like, we're in this together, and I want there to be a certain energy about your appointment. And if you can already tell from online that I'm not your girl, then that saves us huge...
Yeah, then I don't want to talk you... Yeah, like, then it's just going to be like, when they're in your chair, you're never going to be able to, like, get on the same page. It's so funny because we were trying to let the students know yesterday in the class, we're like, it's okay to share a little bit more of your story. People, what happens is people will follow you like they are your fans. And you're like, well, I don't have a huge follower. And they're like, it doesn't matter. When you start following somebody and you feel like you intimately know inside their life, you do. You follow their stories and you feel like a fan, even if they don't have like a ton of followers. You're like, oh, I watched that like live you did. That was so great, you know? And I was like, so you want your clients to become fans of you. And as we're like explaining to the students, I get on, I'm like, I'm going to do a consultation. I haven't done a consultation in a long time. I did a consultation over the phone at live, real time in class. And at the end, it was so great. At the end, she goes, by the way, I love your stories of like date night and when you and your husband went salsa dancing and then like your fitness journey. And I was like, yeah. It was just funny because I was like saying like, you guys see how your clients are going to connect to you.
They're coming to you.
Yeah.
The hair then becomes the secondary thing. Like once your skill set is like on lock and you're like, I'm a specialist. And that's another thing. Like coming here and working at DKW and being in like the mothership and doing hair out of that, like even there were times where I'm like, am I good? Am I not good? Like I've only been in the hair industry for 7 years. Like I haven't been in here a long time. And to always question that, like there is a point where all of a sudden you're like, I know that whatever sits in my chair, like
I can do it.
I can do it. And it's a journey to get to that point, but it just feels really good to feel confident in your skill set and then also knowing the tools of how to market it. And this program really is such a perfect package because it's the skill set and it's how to market it. And you're like, you can do this anywhere.
I love that you just said like the more you do hair, you feel confident because certainty sells. Meaning like I find a lot of new artists that are like phenomenal at doing hair, but they don't have the reps and the certainty. So that's where they waver and that's where they mess up with their formulas or their foiling or whatever, is because they don't have that certainty. That's why I always communicate and teach, work until the job is done. That way anything can sit in your chair. And even if you're like, I don't do a lot of fashion colors, but I'm confident I could figure it out.
You can take them out of hair apparently.
Yeah,
make it platinum.
Yeah. But that's the thing is like when it comes down to your certainty, it also helps you when a client sits in your chair, you're not like, do you want a partial or a full? Would you like a toner? It's like, this is what your hair needs. This is what we're going to do to give you this desired result. This, it is what it is. It's not like, do you want this? Because if you ask your client and you're the professional, would you like a toner? And they're like, I don't know. No. And then they leave.
What is a toner?
Yeah. And then they leave and you're like, well, that looked like shit. Well, because you just asked them if they wanted a toner. It's part of the process. They get a toner. Like you don't get to ask your client, like, would you like a partial or a full? It's like, hey, assessing your hair, this is what you need.
And that is part of the client experience. Like that is something that really sets up a luxury service is like, I come in and you know what's current, you know my skin tone, you know my coloring, you know what I need to wear. And when I leave, I just feel good.
Right.
And even now, like we don't say, would you like a partial? Would you like, because we do so much more than a partial.
Yeah.
We do so much more than a full
if
highlight.
Somebody asked me, like, if somebody was, I'll give you an example. So I drive clear down to Costa Mesa to get my Botox done. It's like a 50-minute drive. And the reason I go to Elizabeth and I go today and I was like, I don't care how many units you're doing. I don't even care where you put it in my face. And so all I tell her is like, hey, I felt a little heavy. But other than that, like you like, I want to be nice and frozen. I want to be lifted here. Like you do your thing. She's like, cool. And she's like marking up my face and doing it. I'm like, she is confident and she has that certainty. She's just like, cool. Like I let her do her magic.
And she also represents her brand really well, where you're like, you look great.
Yeah.
Like,
I trust you. If she would have been like, I don't know how many units you want. Well, I would have been like, I would have gotten so nervous sitting in the chair, but like, she's coming at me with a needle. Abort
and asking
mission.
me how much I want.
Abort mission. I don't know how much I want. What's a unit?
Right. So I think that certainty also, it's your certainty in how you hold yourself behind the chair, and it's your certainty after you make a decision. And I will say one thing, being somebody who is very much like, I say yes to what I know is the next step, and I confidently go towards it, and I just move forward without hesitation. Like once you step into it and you're like, this is what I'm doing, then you're like, that's what I'm doing.
And you don't have to have a plan. I think that a lot of people, they don't want to, like for you, say for example, like you're like, I don't even know where I'm moving yet. Right. But it doesn't matter because you've already gotten that confirmation. You know how to market. You have that certainty. It's a matter of like, when you find the place, you'll know.
It's so freeing. It's so light. Everyone's like, you're not stressed. I'm like, I actually feel so good because of that certainty.
And you'll figure it out. Like when you get there, you don't, that holds people back is trying to create a plan before you actually make the first move. You're like, how about you just make the first move? Like that's where you're lacking, is you're not going. So you spend years trying to create these plans only to talk yourself out of this prompt that's telling you to fucking move.
Or listen to other people talk you out of it. And finally you're just like, you know what? Like, you have a true north. And I was saying this in class the other day, like, you know where your true north is. You know where it points. I said, I still feel my original fire and my original why. Like, I love training. I love educating. I love being a part of this brand and being a part of this community and a part of this tribe.
But there's more you got to learn.
And that will only make me better in that role because I will have more collective experiences to share on and to build on. So I'm so thankful to this education because truthfully, you teach us how to change our mindset. You teach us how to crush our limiting beliefs and be like, no, you're not in charge here. We have a skill set and we know how to build and brand a business.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
I
Thank you for being excited for me. You've been excited this whole time for me.
I told you, I tried to like talk you into staying, and then I was like, she's already made her mind up.
There was a moment when you were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
He was like, there it is.
I was like,
yeah.
okay, she's serious. She's going.
telling me the truth.
She's going. But once I saw that in you, I was like, of course I would want you to come back as a trainer. Like you were a trainer before you came here.
Yeah,
So
and,
you can
and that's
still
why I
assume
came.
that
I'm like, I
role.
love this. And
Yeah.
you know, I know we're wrapping it up, but just to say, like, just to see the things of students coming into the podcast and seeing like every single one of the training team getting to speak on stage and getting to see like mastermind and council members step on stage and like share a piece of them, like the education is growing and it's changing. And I feel like it's such in a good place and a good moving component that the microphone is now being passed around to everybody. And to hear from students and to hear from trainers, I really do feel like being able to fly back in. I mean, I was coming 7 times a year before I moved here. I was here a lot. Like
you and Sarah.
I can do that. Like that's
well, you're
fine.
not going to move that far, are you?
No.
Yeah. I was
Always
like,
a plane.
I was like,
plane
I
right
feel
away.
like you're just going to be like hop on
yeah,
a skip
I'm still on the
away.
West Coast, guys.
There's
I'm
mountains
still gonna
close
say
by.
this.
Don't go too far.
Those
Stay on the
ranges.
West Coast.
For
but,
sure.
But yeah, it's a really cool community. Like I feel like I've created my like almost like dream community. And again, I keep referencing yesterday, but it was just like a really cool experience. And I felt like I created a safe place for people to share like some of the most intimate stuff. And it was like we even had a few comments where flat out students were like, I'm scared to share this in a group. Can I talk to you personally? And I'm like, no, I want this to be a safe place. And we had many shares where like there was tears and I was like, oh, I love this. You know, it really reinforces like what I'm doing, what we're doing, and the difference that it will make. And I genuinely believe that like part of this purpose on this world is to like kind of pay it forward and help other people. You know, like money's going to come, and that's great, and relationships are going to come, but ultimately, like I believe, like when you're kind of again like helping other people, it comes back time and time
when you're
again.
living your purpose, it doesn't. It can't help but like come and go the way it's supposed to in your life.
I think it's just. I think the important thing, if you guys are listening to this podcast, is if you have these feelings or these thoughts that keep coming up, don't ignore them. And I always say entertain every option, because oftentimes we think that our goals and our visions or whatever are like way far out. And so we shut down these feelings and these thoughts thinking like, oh, well, maybe in 10 years, well, maybe in 15 years. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you're feeling like this little, I call it spidey sense or whatever it is, entertain that thought. Okay, well, I need to move, or I want to open a salon, or I need to hire an assistant, or what, no big or small challenge, whatever it is, entertain, okay, what does that look like if I want to open a salon? What does it look like if I want to move to the mountains? And like I said, once you start to do that, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that wasn't that far off of a goal. I was making it sound like it was like way out in the future, but like actually it's not as hard as I thought. So entertain those thoughts, don't push them down, don't stifle them, and see where life takes you. See where this next chapter of your life will take you. So all right, that was fun.
It was so good.
Any last words?
I just love and appreciate everybody here, and I'm grateful for my opportunity, and you will see me again, and
she'll be
have
back.
a great day.
She'll be back, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast. We try to do one every Tuesday with myself, one of my trainers, one of my students. Again, we are hairstylists, but also I feel like there's a lot of a lot of women, a lot of people that like listen to this and like this podcast. So if you love it, share it. Tune in every Tuesday. If you want more information on education, go to nbr.education. That's where you can find out more information about my academy. Again, the academy is on the skill sets of natural beauty row hair extensions, but it also teaches you business, marketing, mindset, and sales so that you can succeed with the tool of natural beauty rows behind the chair. So there's my plug for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed everything you heard on this podcast, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.